Hello and welcome to another video. This time I will be talking about my experience with the Spellforce III Beta. First off, one thing that the makers of this game should have taken into consideration is that the last Spellforce game was released all the way back in 2006, and with the game industry being much larger now than it was back then, means that most of the players that will play this game did not play the previous one. The reason why I mention this is that many characters throw around names and terms without even explaining what they mean. And yes, I do know, it is only the beta, and it is actually to show us how the gameplay will work. But I did want to mention this as a concern. If the end product looks like this, it will be a huge problem for newcomers to the series. Now, when it comes to the gameplay, I have to say that it is not as good as I expected it to be. The game says that it is a perfect blend between RTS and RPG, and in my opinion that is sadly just not true. I do have to take into account that it is still in beta, and that there is a lot of work still to be done, but these are just my first impressions of it. Instead of giving us at least a good RTS or a good RPG experience, we end up with a mediocre blend of both. The RPG elements are shallow and not so intuitive. You have a character who has different talents and abilities which you can use to your advantage in fights. And even though this sounds nice and is implemented into the RTS part of the game with a certain degree of success, it still doesn't help it to get over how bland it actually is compared to normal RPGs. Along with it, we get a RTS experience that is nothing special either. True, it is not bad. It works, I guess. You build up your base, give workers specific tasks, it all works nicely, but it is nothing new. We have seen all of this before and sometimes even better. This looks like a mishmash of different strategy games and top-down RPGs that just wallows somewhere in between. I would rather have seen a good strategy game or a good RPG come out of this, instead of what they did. Now, as I mentioned, this is just the beta. And the full game might make it worth it with the story and characters, but this beta sadly failed to impress, and if you plan on playing multiplayer, I wish you good luck. This game is good by 2006 standards, but nowadays it just feels underwhelming compared to the strategy games that came out since the last Spellforce. The style of the game is just like in the last one, a blend of realistic and stylized elements. It does give a certain charm to the game, but even it is nothing new. Besides that, I ran the game on maximum settings, and I have to say that I have seen strategy games older than 6 years look nicer than this. Spellforce 3 might be fun for players that played the prior games in the franchise, at least because of the nostalgia factor if nothing else. And yes, I did play the last Spellforce game, and I do hope to see a better game than this at release. Goodbye, and thanks for listening.